present to you today. This is a class that I've taught over at Evergreen Hospital, so I'm reusing the same slides. We'll see how much are relevant. I'm open to questions in the middle. If you've got a burning question, let's make it interactive and fun. Sound good? Okay. So my goal today is if you guys walk away with one idea that's going to help you adjust your thinking and utilize your mind actually for your good. Sometimes our mind is what gets in the way instead of what helps us out. So if you can get some ideas from today's talk, then I've done my job. So we're going to talk about a few basic points. I'm going to do an overview of mind, like what is mind, an overview of hypnosis, and then I'll give you some basic self-hypnosis strategies, a series of steps. And we'll talk about the benefits. My story, a little bit about me. I went to school for mass communications. I started going down the psychology track, and I was not that interested at the time in the clinical or the disorders, the psychological disorders. My passion has always been about peak performance and human potential. So I switched majors in college and ended up going down the path of mass communications. As fate would have it, I got my first job out of college and spent the next 8 years there at a company called Motivation Media out of a suburb of Chicago, Illinois, which is where I was from. And we worked with Fortune 500 companies helping to motivate their salespeople. So I had access to all kinds of really wonderful processes and techniques. We did a lot of the media, but also it was motivating. So we used music and sound and getting everybody pumped up, and I got to get my head into that whole thing. So in my spare time, I was studying everything I could get my hands on about the mind, about peak performance, about how it worked, and what makes the difference between those people who say, okay, I'm going to set my mind on success, and I'm going to move forward down this path, and they just go ahead and do it, and they achieve. And other people who say, you know, I want to do this, and then they end up bumping their head against the wall. Like, I want to quit smoking, but I can't. Or I want to have healthy habits, but I can't get myself out of bed. What's the difference? What's happening in the psychology of the human mind? So I just explored everything that I could get my hands on, attended lots of classes. I moved to California back in the early 90s, and I found a little school called the Palo Alto School of Hypnotherapy. And I said, hypnotherapy, that's kind of interesting. Maybe I'll go take a class just to check it out, you know, just for my own good. 20 years later, actually 23 years later now, I've had a private practice in hypnosis and hypnotherapy and worked with people from all walks of life with lots of different challenges. And it's been the most rewarding thing of my total life and career, and I feel like it's a passion and a calling. I've created a bunch of self-help programs, audios, that people can listen to. And I'm going to leave one with Ms. Robertson for you guys to check out if you'd like. It's called The 7 Steps of Self-Hypnosis, and it's a 2 CD set. So one of them has me talking. It's just sort of an introduction and a little bit about it, and then there's a bonus track that won't make sense until you listen to this. This guides you through all 7 steps. So for those of you who want to explore more, I'll leave that with Ms. Robertson. And then I've also written a book about changing habits. So I'm going to leave a copy of this for you guys, and if anybody's interested, you can check that out. It's called 6-Word Lessons on Changing Habits, 100 Lessons to Stop Self-Sabotage and Gain Self-Mastery. Lots of great little tips. Okay. So, hypnosis myths. You guys have heard about these, right? Clucking like a chicken, barking like a dog. This is all fun and games that people can have in stage hypnosis shows. And one of the things about stage hypnotists, they do a great service to the field of hypnosis by introducing a lot of people to the power of the mind. Unfortunately, it's a double-edged sword because there's a lot of fear that ends up coming out of that. A lot of people say, oh my gosh, I don't want mind control. I don't want to be made to look foolish. I don't want somebody putting some kind of a spell over me, and so I'm not going to go down that path and explore it. So a lot of the work that I have to do as a hypnotherapist is really to dispel some of those myths and let people know that hypnosis is not mind control. And what happens in a stage hypnosis process is very much a cooperative and a participatory experience. The people who go up there do so willingly. They want to participate. They want to have fun. And you may notice, if you've ever seen a stage hypnosis show, that as soon as somebody checks out and chooses not to participate or is not following the protocol, usually the hypnotist will escort them off the stage and say thank you very much, and we'll just work with those people that are remaining. So in a hypnotherapeutic technique, it's much different. And the other thing to know about hypnosis is it's a very natural state. It's something we all go in and out of throughout the day. It's very much like daydreaming, mental planning, mental rehearsal, or visualizing. It's a little bit like that flow state that I heard Ms. Robertson talk about with her other class. I don't know if you guys have gotten into that yet, but it's a highly focused state of awareness where instead of your attention being on what's happening outside, your attention is on what's happening in your own inner reality. It's a lot like that state between sleep and waking.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's you know, that state like right when you're just falling asleep or just waking up and you're a little bit dreamy and things are not exactly fully sharp yet. The hypnotic state is a lot like that, but it's different for all people. So I think that's another misconception. People think that going under has to be a certain way, and there's a wide range of normal of what people experience. All right, this is some really cool stuff. Many of the great thinkers of our time, and I guess before our time, knew about this state called the hypnagogic state or hypnagogia. It's a highly creative state of consciousness that's sort of in between sleep and waking. And what they used to do, and let's see if I can step over here, and I don't know if Ryan can still see me. There are tales told of Thomas Edison and some of his contemporaries who would attempt to get into that state while they were in their invention mode, right? Seeking to invent something. So they would close their eyes and get into that state, but a lot of times they would fall asleep. So they created a little method. They'd sit down in a chair and put 2 metal buckets on either side of them and put ball bearings in their hands. And as they would sit there holding the ball bearings, closing their eyes, attempting to get into that state, their minds would begin to open up and they'd get all kinds of wonderful ideas and insights. If they fell asleep, the muscles in their hands would relax. They'd drop the ball bearings, it would make a loud crashing sound in the metal bucket, and then it would bring them back to normal state so that they could once again try to get back into it. So I always thought that was so cool. If it's good for them, what could we do if we could access more of those altered states of consciousness without drugs? Okay. Many of the realms of study and exploration that I bring to my work, and I think a lot of hypnotherapists, anybody who's worth their salt, has brings in a lot of different fields of study. So between psychology, communications, neuroscience, cellular biology, heart intelligence, that's a field I work with a lot, and I'll teach you a little bit about that if we have time today, physics and consciousness. One of my favorite things about this work, though, is we know a lot about how the mind works, but there's still a little bit of art involved. It's not all science. We can't necessarily predict every time, and this is one of my favorite cartoons. It's a couple of scientists or mathematicians, and they've got all kinds of things all figured out, and yet there's this quantum factor in the middle, right? Then a miracle occurs. We don't exactly always know how and why it can totally work for some people and not for someone else. So a little bit of a mystery element. Okay, so when you think about mind, what do you think of? What's mind? Where's mind? A few thoughts from the group. Very typical response. We're trained to think that mind is brain.
Like consciousness.
Consciousness, good.
Just the way you're thinking.
Okay, the way you're thinking. So the word way implies a process of thinking. Okay. Any other thoughts about mind? Okay, well, it's a huge field of study. And when we think about consciousness, we want to be aware that there are different kinds of conscious awareness. And most of us in Western culture have been programmed to put most of our emphasis, our value, as it were, on the intellectual realm, right? The brain, the intellect, analysis. But mind is deeper than that. There is the other side of it, emotion, feeling, sensing. You can kind of think of it a little bit like that left brain, right brain concept, but I would also encourage you to think that it's more of a full awareness. Every cell in your body has the capability of maintaining, muscle memory, right? When you learn something, it gets embedded into your muscles. We can have a gut feeling about something, right? We can have an intuitive hit. People can do something that they know intellectually doesn't make sense, but they do it anyway. So what's that about? It's about becoming more aware of the dimension of awareness, and it's bigger than just the head. It's not all in your head. Okay, have you guys heard of the Iceberg Theory yet? The Iceberg Theory of consciousness, that your intellect, that analytical, conscious processing part of your mind is only about 10%. Because we can't think of everything all at once. The human brain is capable of processing only about 7 things at any given moment in time, plus or minus 2. Everything else is a subconscious process. So the subconscious is like what's below the surface of the iceberg, the base of it. Another way to think about it is if the conscious mind is sort of that outer, in our layers of the brain, we've got the primitive inner brain, and then with the medial, and then we've got the more evolved outer brain, right, with the executive functioning. You can think of the conscious mind as being like that rational, linear, sequential, logical part of us. And it's a little bit like a guard. It's the gatekeeper of what it allows things to get in and out sometimes. And then once a belief has been embedded into the inner mind, the subconscious, those habits, it gets into muscle memory. It's illogical and nonlinear. And so when we want to change beliefs, we need to be able to access that inner mind somehow. And that conscious mind can sometimes get in the way. So one of the definitions of hypnosis is a bypass of the critical factor, that conscious level of mind, and then selective thinking. So I've got an image there of a movie screen, right? We all kind of have a movie screen of the mind, but you want to think of it more holographically. It's not two-dimensional. It's not merely visual. Okay, we process on lots of different dimensions. So what we do with hypnosis is we invite people to do what at first? What do we do usually? The first thing? Relax, yeah. So it's as if we're saying to that conscious guard, why don't you just lie down and relax. It's okay. Just rest, relax. We engage that part of the mind with imagery, with music, with slowing down, maybe with sensory awareness, to get that conscious part of the mind to set aside just enough so that we can access the subconscious levels. And then the selective thinking, what kind of selective thinking are we going to want to do, right? Me as a hypnotherapist, I wouldn't be in business very long if I started having people selectively think about, being a circus clown, if that's not part of what they choose in life, right? I am trained to help people identify and listen to what it is that they really want and help them access their goals and dreams and visions on a deep inner level. Right? So we want to be focusing on something that you want, that you desire to have happen on multiple levels. So when we think about trance, you mentioned about sleep, so good question. This is just a crude drawing. It's not based on anything real, but just to kind of give you a visual picture of what we're talking about is the speed of the brain waves. So there's basically, there's more than just these 4, but these are kind of 4 typical brainwave states that people go in and out of throughout the day. So down at the bottom there, delta, 1 to 3 hertz, very slow, that's deep sleep, okay? Theta, that's that really optimum hypnagogic state. That's between 4 and 8 hertz between sleep and waking, so it's still pretty slow. Alpha is probably where a lot of you are now, kind of a relaxed awareness, calm, lucid. Beta might be if you're taking a test or if you're really engaged, it's just a matter of speed. And then there's gamma, which a lot of meditators can experience. It's just a very higher, more, I don't know if advanced is the word, it's just another different state. So when we talk about learning and habit, and when we want to change habits, and this is what a lot of what I do with hypnosis is helping people change habits, whether it's a habit of like smoking or drinking, or whether it's a habit of an unproductive way of thinking, like thinking I'm no good all the time, or thinking, you know, I'm not okay, I'm not a good public speaker, I'm not smart enough, whatever. If that's a habitual way of thinking and we want to change that, we want to understand a little bit about how that thinking pattern got embedded into the subconscious. So when you think about how you learn, babies first have to learn to walk, and there's a lot of almost analytical processing, even though children aren't really analytical yet. But we're trying and attempting to do things over and over and over again until it gets embedded in the body. So any of you driving yet? Do we have some drivers? Okay. So you know when you first get into a car, you're first driving, there's a lot of processing, right? Okay, got to check the mirrors, got to look for this, okay, where does my foot go, how much pressure, you know, looking at all the different things. It's a lot of conscious processing. But after you've done it for a while, you just get in the car, turn on the ignition, set your mind to where you want to go, and the body kind of knows what to do, right? Just like they say, just like riding a bicycle. So there's a transfer of skills from the conscious layer of mind into the subconscious. So it's almost as if the body itself takes over this level of awareness. So what about bad habits, right? Similar kind of thing. At first, it's something that we might try or do a few times. And then once we repeat a particular behavior over and over again, it creates a pathway in our brain. So you know about neural pathways and brain pathways? You can think of it like a pathway through the woods, right? If a particular path is walked on over and over and over again, it's not going to have any weeds, right? It's going to be all smooth, it's going to be very clear. And then if you want to change habits, it's like trying something new where you haven't gone before, and there's weeds and all kinds of issues. So with bad habits, it's basically the brain has made some associations between a particular habit and pleasure. And so when stress hits, usually people will go for one of these habitual ways of being because of that repetitive behavior pattern. So the question I usually encourage people to ask is not whether habits are good or bad, because we can get into all kinds of judgments and self-criticism about whether our habits are good or bad, but it's about whether this is productive or unproductive behavior, and if you want to continue with it or not. And here's another thing that I hope you guys will take to heart. Patterns of thinking can become habitual, and you'll see on the left side there, a lot of people have a pattern of thinking looking at what could go wrong. Somewhere along the line, it's a survival strategy. And then the feelings that accompany that are worry and doubt and fear and tension, insecurity, self-criticism, cynicism, negativity. Okay? On the flip side of that might be a focus on what could go right. Right? Optimism, curiosity, acceptance, self-respect, appreciation, and gratitude. Which one's productive and which one's more productive? That's up to you to decide. Okay, a little bit about thought. Have you guys heard of Neuro-Linguistic Programming yet? Okay. Good thing to research. How many of you think you might want to head into the field of psychology, or are really, okay, a couple of you. I would encourage you to explore this topic, NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming. It's the science of how we represent ideas in our mind. So when we think of a thought is a combination of multiple factors: images, sounds, and feelings. Okay, so it's not just an image. It's connected to an internal sound and a feeling, and it becomes a holographic event, right? Consciousness has an architecture, and as a hypnotherapist, that's what I'm listening for when somebody comes into my office. When I kind of visualize it this way. Whoever comes in and sits in my chair, they'll say, okay, so here I am. You know, in fact, I might have a slide for this. Let me see. Oh, I'm gonna come back to that point. Sorry, I do have a slide for that. So let's just talk about the architecture. And it's not always logical. Okay, so the patterns and the thoughts that we have in our mind, the structure, don't always make sense. So these little cartoons I thought were kind of fun. The guy's saying, well, if I smile, the rest of my body will think I'm in a good mood. And then my feet will want to go out dancing, and then I might meet another woman on the dance floor, and then I might have to pay you alimony. So that's why I never smile. Makes no logical sense. But people have these patterns embedded in their mind from whatever source, and they go through their lives making seemingly ridiculous choices. If you put a crouton on your sundae instead of a cherry, it counts as a salad. Okay? Now, who's hypnotized here, right? That's almost being in a hypnotic trance, to go through life believing some of these fallacies. Or this one, I still smoke, but I'm careful to buy cigarettes that are gluten-free with no trans fat. Okay? Makes no sense. A lot of people have beliefs embedded in their consciousness that don't make a lot of sense. Okay, so this is the slide I was going to come back to. So when somebody comes into my office, they sit down in my chair and they describe where they're at in their life. And they're basically a swirling combination of patterns, right? And you, every one of you right now, is a swirling combination of interrelated patterns. The patterns of your thoughts. Every thought you've ever thought embeds and creates a pattern in your consciousness. Every sensation or feeling that you've ever felt, that creates the sum total of who you are and how you got to this place right now. The emotions you've experienced, the memories you've had, the relationships that have touched you in your life, okay? The beliefs that you've adopted, the imprints, the impressions that you have absorbed from your family of origin, from your school, from the shows that you've watched on TV. All of that has created this pattern. The values, what you value, what you personally decide to say, this is meaningful, this is valuable to me. You're going to spend your time and your energy based on what you choose to make valuable and important. Things aren't necessarily important in and of themselves, right? And that's that architecture that I'm talking about. So when somebody comes into my office, they've got this combination of whoever they are. And usually they've got some kind of issue, or else they wouldn't be there to see me. Or the smart ones recognize that they can be doing better, but they feel like there's something in their mind or in their thoughts that's holding them back. And they want to have a little bit of help to move from where they are, this pattern here, to where they perceive they might want to be. They might get a sense, you know, I'd kind of like to have a different pattern. I'd like to think a little differently. I'd like to feel a little bit better about myself. I'd like to be making different choices, different habits. And so my job is to help them demystify and uncover the architecture of where they are, and then shift those patterns so that they can step into the kind of person where they want to be, where they can have a pattern of thinking the way they want to think, and feeling the way they want to feel, and behaving the way they want to behave. The implications of all those patterns affect everything about you. It affects your choices, your behavior, right? Your habits, your health, and your very identity, who you believe you are. It's all a factor of all of those patterns of how you've got to be where you are. The great news about that is you are in control of those patterns, and we can learn to change them. We can learn to shift our consciousness, and that's the fun part. Okay, so these three guys are some of my, they've influenced my work, shall we say. And, you know, I encourage you to check into some of their work if you like. Dr. Herbert Benson coined the term the relaxation response, and he was one of the first to really measure that just by relaxing, we change what's happening in the body. We change the cortisol levels, we change the stress levels, and we experience a different kind of response that's healthier. Bruce Lipton is a cellular biologist who helped, he was teaching medical students during the Human Genome Project years, where we thought that DNA was going to control everything. Hi.
Hi. Just set her down. Thanks, man.
So we thought that DNA was going to control everything, and that DNA was like the master controller of our genes. And he and his mentor learned that it's not just the DNA, it's the environment. You could take cells that were cloned from the same DNA substance and you put them in different environments and they grow and shape to different things, and that has profound implications on our health. Okay? And then Roland McCready is the chief scientist over at the Institute of Heart Math. We can measure the pattern of our heart rate and how it's impacted by our thoughts and our emotions. And that has all kinds of amazing influences on your body. For example, this is what different emotions, how it influences your heart rate. So up there where it says frustration, that could be any negative emotion. Worry, doubt, fear, anxiety, any of those kinds of feelings. It tends to throw the heart into a chaotic pattern. So can you see how it might be a benefit? Let's say you're getting ready to take an exam. Let's say you're getting ready to go on a date. You're getting ready to do something important. To be able to use your mind to shift the patterns of your thoughts. Down there on the bottom, appreciation, that's called a coherent pattern. It's very smooth and regulated. And all of these things have implications to your immune system, your cortisol levels, your health in a lot of ways. So I won't get into too much detail here. But remember this slide about the habits of thinking? So for those folks who are continually focused on what could go wrong, they've got that pattern happening in their body, emotionally changing, and that heart rate pattern affects your brain waves and affects everything in your physiological system. Over time, that has a detrimental effect on your health. So focusing on what could go right, learning to shift your thoughts with intention can help you create a state. You know, we were talking about, well, no, that was your other class that I was here for the last few minutes, but that zone state. You guys have heard about the zone state with athletes. When you can learn how to bring your body into a zone state, you can have much better results. The electromagnetic field generated by your heart is measurable up to 3 feet beyond your physical body, too. So do you ever walk into a room and kind of get a weird vibe from somebody? It's like, oh, you know, that's what you're sensing. And we've all heard that animals can sense fear. Well, people can sense other people's emotional field. It may be invisible, and we sense it at an unconscious level. But in terms of your social relationships as well as your health, it behooves you to learn how to recognize what's going on inside of you and shift those patterns. I'll brush over this really quickly. On the left side, when we're in a state of negative emotion, we have cortisol. That's a stress hormone coursing through our system. It can lower our immune system. It can damage cells and tissues. Over on the right, when we are in a positive emotional state, we have DHEA moving through our system. It boosts our immune system. Just a couple of things that self-hypnosis can help. You guys can all learn how to do this yourself. It can activate the relaxation response. It can help minimize or alleviate pain. It can lower cortisol levels, increase DHEA levels, repair, rejuvenate, and restore cells. It can help reduce sleeplessness and fatigue, reduce physical and emotional symptoms of disease, raise IgA levels, which enhances immune system functioning, can reduce feelings of anxiety, depression, anger, and distress, and increase feelings of peacefulness and vitality. And these techniques, we tend to think of it as being all woo-woo, ooh, hypnosis, ooh, scary. Well, it's very practical, and some of the highest paid executives use these strategies, Olympic athletes and Navy SEALs. In fact, there's some great videos on the Navy SEALs process, but they've implemented a 4-step mental training process that once they started doing this with their new trainees, they increased the passing rate for their their underwater exam, that really scary, underwater exam, from 25 to 33%. And it's utilizing these it's self-hypnosis basically. Goal setting, mental rehearsal. So going through in your mind's eye and picturing yourself being successful before you actually get there. Creating positive self-talk, so inner dialogue, using language that's reassuring and confident, just like you would hear in a hypnotic session. And then arousal control has to do with breathing techniques and relaxation. So it's all connected. This is not just, weird or woo-woo. So quick review, the definition of hypnosis is bypassing that critical factor of the mind and then selective thinking. Choosing an image sound, feeling, mental experience that's something that you want to have happen. On the flip side of that, think about what's worry. When you're sitting there worrying about something, what are you doing? Right? You're mentally rehearsing something that you don't want to have happen. So it's really, it's self-hypnosis for the negative. So keep that in mind. Okay, levels of consciousness. We've also proven that hypnotic suggestions can enter the mind at any of these levels. So you don't necessarily have to be in a deep trance state. And there's a lot of hypnotic language used in politics, used in advertising. So it's a really advanced field. It's a lot of fun to study. Okay, so these are the 7 steps. And any of you can do this anytime. I'm going to open it up to questions, and then we'll check in on timing. If you want me to try to take you through a quick one, maybe we can. If not, that's why I'm leaving this, so if anybody wants to check this out. But basically, the first step is to relax your body, right? Simple. Get into a comfortable position, let your body relax. Second is to imagine a special place. Now, what's going on with that? What happens when you imagine a special place? You're kind of putting yourself in there. You're entering a 3-dimensional reality. You're using your imagination. I think of that like a warm-up before a workout, right? You're engaging your mind to think about, so it could be anything you want. If you like a beach, picture maybe picking up some sand and feeling it in your hand and the temperature and listening to the sound of the waves. All of that engages the power of your imagination. Then deepening, when I have somebody in my office or when I'm recording a program for somebody, that would be a backwards countdown, right? You've heard of that. Okay, 10, relaxing deeper, number 9, letting go. But really you can imagine walking down a flight of stairs, or imagine taking a trip down an elevator, or walking down a mountain path. Anything that takes your imagination deeper inside your own personal experience and further away from what's happening in the outside world can be used as a deepening technique. Then I've got these 3 in blue. This is really where a lot of that, the oomph of the hypnotic process happens. Mental rehearsal, imagining your ideal state. So let's say you want to be an athlete, right? You want to achieve your best performance in a particular sport. You might imagine stepping into your body, performing at your best, right? And going through a little mental rehearsal, feeling every fiber of your body and how that feels, experiencing the joy, the positive emotion of that. And number 5, enhancing with emotion. It's really important to bring all those good feelings, because emotion bridges the gap from that mental level into the physical body, and that's how we sense things. And then finally, releasing it with gratitude. We don't want to just hold on to that forever. We want to get to that place, and then we want to imagine that we've already succeeded. And we're going, yes, right? Whew, I am so happy. I am so grateful that it's already done. That tells the brain that you've already achieved it. And the brain starts working on that process, okay? And then finally, returning to present time and space. So, as I mentioned, we know a lot. There's still a lot we don't know. Let's open it up for questions, if that's okay with you. And what can I answer for you? Yes?
Can we do the quick session of the...
You guys want to experience it? Yeah? Is that okay? Okay. Cool. How much time do we have? When's the...
Like 18 minutes or so.
Okay.
The bell rings at 2 o'clock.
Okay, so I'll work on wrapping up by 1:55. Sound good? Okay. All right. So I invite you to let your body find a comfortable position to relax. Good. And feel free to wiggle around until you got it just right. And as you let your eyes close, I invite you to notice what you notice. Become aware of your awareness. Sense the way you sense. Feel the way you feel. There are many processes of feeling and sensing. You may begin to sense how your body feels in the chair. Perhaps sensing how your feet are connecting with the floor. Perhaps sensing the temperature of the room. And as you follow the sound of my voice, you may notice other sounds. The sound of the projector, the sound of occasional noises from outside, and that's okay. You can allow any of those sounds to help you focus your attention more and more inward to your own personal experience. Dropping your attention into your physical body and letting yourself begin to relax. Perhaps noticing your breathing as you allow your breathing to flow into a steady, even pace. Just breathing in and out. Maybe noticing how good it feels to let yourself relax and breathe. Right here, right now. And I invite you to let yourself sink even deeper inside yourself. Letting your body relax any tightness or tension. Feeling more and more comfortable. That's right. And I wonder if you've ever enjoyed a beautiful place in nature. If there's a special place that you like to go where you feel comfortable and relaxed. Or maybe it's a place at home, a quiet, secluded place that's all yours where you just feel really comfortable. Or maybe it's an imaginary place that doesn't even exist. Maybe it's a virtual world. Whatever comes to mind for you, I invite you to let yourself enter a world where you feel safe, where you can explore your imagination for a few moments. Noticing the colors and the shapes, the textures around you. Letting yourself feel so good. Perhaps finding something that you can reach out and touch in your imagination with your hand. Looking at it very closely and noticing its texture and temperature as you reach out and touch it. Good. And as you let it go, you can perhaps find somewhere in this beautiful, safe, imaginary world that you'd like to sit down or lie down and take a few moments to relax. To just let go and feel so comfortable. And as you relax, I'm going to count backwards from 5 to 1. On each number, I invite you to let yourself sink deeper and deeper. Deeper inside yourself. Knowing that throughout this process, you're totally safe and supported, and you're always in complete control. Beginning with the number 5. Gently relaxing deeper and deeper inside. That's right. Number 4, sinking even down deeper. Number 3, perhaps noticing how good it feels. So relaxed and free. Number 2, gently dropping even deeper now. And sinking all the way down with the number 1, very comfortably relaxed. Good. And whatever level of relaxation you are experiencing right now is just fine. Because there are no limits in consciousness. And right here, you are accessing a place in your mind where you have the ability to make changes if you'd like. You have the ability to step into the highest and best version of yourself. Releasing any notions of anything that has ever held you back. Free to show up in the world the way you want to. I invite you to get a sense of what that might feel like. Giving yourself permission to really let go and explore. Feeling confident, capable, intelligent, feeling perhaps attractive, feeling friendly, noticing your relationships feel good. People like talking to you, and you feel so good about yourself. And I invite you to step into a situation where you get to do something you've always wanted to do. Notice whether you're standing or moving. Notice your posture and your breathing. Let yourself walk around a little bit. Are you by yourself or are there other people there? What are you saying? What are you noticing? And as you explore this amazing state of being, I invite you to give yourself permission to feel amazing, to feel wonderful. Letting those good feelings of confidence, capability, perhaps of freedom, letting any wonderful positive emotion that's connected to this activity fill your entire body. And now, let's take a moment to imagine that you can call a friend and say, hey, guess what? I did it. I got there. Or I achieved what I wanted to achieve. Or I've done whatever it is that I've always dreamed of. Imagine calling your friend and saying whatever it is. That's right. And let's take some time to celebrate now. Notice what you're going to do to celebrate this amazing success that you've experienced. Maybe it's something quiet. Maybe it's some other celebration. And now, because all things are possible with the power of your mind, let's take a moment now to invite your own mind to explore, to reveal any other insights that may be helpful for you. You can come back to this amazing place inside yourself anytime you like. And every time you give yourself permission to access the power of your inner mind, you may find it more and more familiar, easier, more and more comfortable. You have the ability to release and let go of any thoughts, ideas, or behaviors that no longer serve you. You have the ability to claim for yourself the way that you want to think, the way that you want to be, and how you'd like to show up in the world. This is your life, and you may find yourself more and more curious about your thoughts and your feelings and the power of your mind in the days and weeks to come. So in a moment, I'm going to count forwards once again from 1 to 5. On each number, I invite you to gradually let yourself come back to this present time and space. When you do return, you'll feel completely refreshed and filled with a renewed sense of hope and enthusiasm about all of the opportunities in store for you. And now stepping back into your physical body with the number 1. Number 2, noticing the sounds around you. Number 3, feeling more and more alert and refreshed. Number 4, taking some big clearing breaths. And number 5, coming all the way back, feeling great. Okay. So, if we had all the time in the world, I would have done my pre-induction talk with you guys, which basically says there's a wide range of normal of what people experience. As many people as there are in this room, that's as many different kinds of experiences as you guys had. Who wants to share? Anybody have something interesting that came up? Was it what you expected? No?
Now when you were counting backwards, every number, my head rate kind of dropped a little more.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did anybody fall asleep? Anybody catch themselves kind of going all the way? Yeah.
I
Okay.
could feel it when I was falling asleep.
Uh-huh.
Like fall in the chair, but then I wake up again.
Yep. That happens. Okay.
Felt really, really relaxed.
Really relaxed. Okay. How'd you guys do with the place? Did anybody actually see themselves in a place? Yeah? Okay. That kind of fun? Not everybody's visual, so some people, you know, it's like, well, I don't really see. So, yes, you had your hand up.
So yeah, I kind of pictured something. I'm trying to remember. I think I was driving or something like that. But then I remember thinking like, oh, I don't want to move my hand because then I'll wake up. Like, and I'm trying to like pay attention and stay in this, but I'm there at the same time. It was different.
Well, so the 7 steps of self-hypnosis CD that I have, I actually outline each of the steps. So what used to happen when I teach self-hypnosis is people would go home and they'd say, I get partway through and then I get so deep and my mind wanders off and I can't remember where I am. And so we have this sort of mental map. So in this program, the music actually changes between each track. So I'll say step 1. Relaxing, and then I'll guide you through that experience, and then the music changes. I'll say step 2. So after you do it a couple of times, you start to get familiar with where you are in the process, and you start to gain mastery over your own thoughts and attention. It's pretty cool.